If you've ever dreamed of composing for nature documentaries, this video shows you exactly how the job actually works once you're in the room. And later, I'll also explain what puts composers in a position to even be considered for these projects in the first place. You're about to hear directly from one of the most successful nature documentary directors and producers working today, with credits ranging from major Netflix productions, including projects exec produced by Steven Spielberg, to independent award-winning films. And here's what we're going to cover: what working with the creative team on one of these documentaries actually looks like from start to finish, how directors really want composers to collaborate with them, when to try bold left field ideas and when it's dangerous to, when composers usually write the main theme and why timing matters, and what makes the show's executives more likely to connect with your music.
I certainly myself prefer to get a composer in as early as possible. If budgets and if the composer has the capacity, I want to talk to them about it before I've filmed anything. I would actually say most of the time, those little ideas that come in the early days, usually in one of those is the main theme for the whole film.
That was Barny Revill, director and producer of major nature documentaries, including Life on Our Planet, Earth from Space, and Life at the Extreme. I've worked with Barny as the composer on several of his projects, and what he just described there is very different from how most composers assume this process works. Early stage collaboration is an easy win for the composer for so many reasons. So let's jump back in and look how top nature documentary directors and producers actually like to work with their composers.
For what point are composers typically coming onto nature documentaries? Is it the same for nature documentaries as it would be similar to like film and TV, or are you coming in, or is a composer coming in a bit later?
It varies. It varies a lot, and it depends on the composer and the project and the budget and how long the schedule is and stuff. Documentaries, especially wildlife ones, are quite music heavy. There's pretty much always a track rumbling along doing something to kind of help in the background. I certainly myself prefer to get a composer in as early as possible. You know, I want to talk to them about it before I've filmed anything.
This is already a big mindset shift for some composers. People assume that they're hired to deliver music once the film exists. But what Barney's describing here is a creative partnership that starts before there's even a film to score.
What I found often is that you can sort of send them little early, oh, we've just shot this really exciting thing, like just wanted you to see it, and they can sort of get inspired, and then they can go, oh, I just threw this together, it's an idea, like I don't know if it fits, and often it may not fit. I say often it won't. I would actually say most of the time, those little ideas that come in the early days, usually in one of those is the main theme for the whole film.
This part is crucial. The main theme usually isn't written because someone said, hey, now go write the main theme. The bones of the theme often emerge naturally from early experimentation before there's pressure, deadlines, or exec opinions in the room. Let's hear Barny talk more about the editing process on these nature docs and how they work with the composer during that. And real quick, if you enjoy these kind of conversations with film and TV directors about how they actually like to work with composers, hit like and subscribe so we can keep making them. If you want to be part of these composer Zoom calls yourself, I'll explain that at the end of the video. For now, back to Barny.
Yeah, they'll throw a few things and then you pick on one, you're like, I love this. And it's sort of, you then start editing with it in mind, they start composing more, and you can sort of bounce stuff back and forth. And I think it's a fantastic way to work if you can. And then inevitably, once we start editing properly, we'll send a cut and kind of go, don't worry too much about the scene because it's going to change in, you know, inevitably it'd be too long to start with, and we'll just slowly get it more and more succinct and powerful. But you can tell from looking at it, this is the vibe of that scene. It's a introspective scene, or it's something where we want people to think long and hard about their place in the planet or what they're doing to the planet, or it's a super exciting chase hunt scene or something. I don't know, but they can start throwing ideas together, giving you things. I thought this kind of track might work for that scene. I thought this track might work for that scene. We've often in the edit either listen to it and go, brilliant, that works beautifully, and can then kind of help sort of edit around it. But sometimes we go, it's not really working for that, but it works really well there, because the composer doesn't even know that we've got that scene yet because they haven't seen the film.
And this is the point where terminology starts to matter. When Barney's talking about sending cuts and experimenting, he's talking about the rough cut phase, long before picture lock. Once you understand the difference between rough cut, fine cut, and picture lock, you start to see why early collaboration gives composers so much more leverage. A rough cut is where the film is still being discovered. Scenes are too long, sequences move around, and the emotional shape isn't locked yet. From a composer's perspective, this is actually the most powerful phase, because music can still influence pacing, tone, and even what stays in the film. A fine cut is where that exploration starts narrowing. The structure is mostly there, the emotional intent is clearer, and now the music's being shaped to support decisions that are already forming. And picture lock is exactly what it sounds like. The edit is frozen, no shots move, no timings change. And at that point, music is no longer influencing the film, it's fitting into it. So the leverage gap here is kind of obvious. If you're involved during rough cut, you're helping create and shape the film. If you come in at picture lock, you're delivering to it. Many composers come in at picture lock and wonder why their ideas feel constrained. And that's not a talent issue, it's a timing and positioning issue.
Usually we'll then send a rough cut and go, look, these the kind of scenes, and then a fine cut, and then the pitch lock. But ideally, for me, selfishly, if we've got a lot of the music, or as much as possible, from a composer in the edits, then also I can get the reactions from the execs and the commissioners. Like, I'm essentially getting sign off from them, and they're getting used to a certain style of music with the film as they're seeing the cuts coming onto their desk. And so the sign off, it just all sort of makes it much easier, rather than you get to this narrow window once you've picture locked before you have the final mix, when everything's happening very fast. And if you've got to compose all the music in that time and do a record of it and get the mixes back in time for the final mix, like, that's going to be a matter of weeks, and if you've got a lot to do, that's really could be challenging, especially if you send a few things in and either the director or the execs are going, oh, it's not working for me. So there's always going to be tracks that don't work for whatever reason, that just don't gel, that people don't like. So it makes it harder, but it does also make it constrained. There's a start, there's a finish. You can't dick around with my time for months and months on end, which is probably what I'm describing what I'd like to do. But I think it depends on you, your style, what that budget is, what your schedule is, what their schedule is. Because generally, I would say that collaboration is what gets the best out of both sides.
And the other thing I would add to all the amazingly and absolutely true things that Barney just said is, I think from a composer perspective, if you're going to be experimenting with some kind of slightly crazier ideas, which is often where the best work can come, because it's different and it's a little off the wall and it's interesting and fresh and all of that, you kind of really want to be doing that at the beginning of the process, where there's not really any timeline, deadlines, there's not any kind of stress and pressure going on. Like, if you try and introduce some wild curveball off the wall stuff later on, I don't know if you'd agree, Barney. So I think it can work, but you're throwing that in a situation where if it doesn't land,
you're just going to be up against it time-wise, and people, like you say, will have less patience to experiment and go with you on a journey. If it's late in the day, they've already probably got the kind of edit signed off by their execs, commissioners, and so much as you have a great idea of throwing in, like you say, this wildly experimental, fresh take on the music for this film, it's going to make everyone go, whoa, okay. And is that what we want? Whereas if you're embedding that earlier, you're experimenting, you're not wasting huge amounts of time, but you're kind of throwing this, and someone can go, actually, yeah, and then together you can make it really sing. Then you've got a lot more chance of getting it through. So no, I would agree.
So I hope what you take away from this video is that we haven't even talked about writing better music. This is really about understanding how the industry works and positioning yourself so directors and producers have a great experience working with you as their composer. And when that happens, they're far more likely to call you back again and again. If you'd like to be part of these composer Zoom calls, or you want to talk to us about having our mentors work with you personally to help you land real film, TV or video game scoring work, there's a free training linked below where we break that entire path down in detail. It's specifically for composers who want to score films, TV and games. So this isn't for sync or library music. And if this whole video was useful, feel free to check out some of the other videos on our YouTube channel. I'll put a few up on the screen here, where we go deeper into building real careers in film, TV and game music. And finally, if you want more conversations like this with real industry professionals, hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next one.